well, well, today is Saturday, June 27, 1992, and we're planning to probably make kind of a little pamphlet booklet for our own enjoyment as a family, starting with the Bill Blair family, Bill and Nina, and we were 7 kids. And now this is coming on to me kind of quickly. I had talked about that we should each write, and then Al got the idea of using his camera
Put your clippers down.
So, as thinking back, I will think of more things, but I guess I was born in South Dakota, in Roberts County, northeast of Sisseton, a few miles out in the country, and of course I don't remember exactly when we moved then, but we ended up down in Minnesota, Kimball, Minnesota, near Kimball. We lived different towns around there, Annandale and near Litchfield, and most of the time at Kimball. And I guess maybe one of the kind of the first things I remember was being at Grandpa and Grandma Blair's, and I won't say how old I was, probably between 5 and 6.
Is that Grandpa Reuben Blair?
At Grandpa Reuben Blair, and Grandma's name was Christine. I believe that Christine. Your name for both your grandmothers, Clara and Christine. And so I can remember we lived in a little, well, I think we lived with Grandpa and Grandma maybe for a while, because I remember being there. And I always blame my grandma for me not liking milk. I never drank milk. I didn't like it because
Did she make you drink it right out of the cow?
No, well, the thing, I guess I don't know if this makes any sense, but she was making something. And of course, I was standing right there, being a nuisance to her, and she was using sour cream, and I wanted some, so and I just about threw up. I thought it was awful, and I had never drank milk.
Maltodel with the young potatoes.
Yes. Right. But I remember, kind of remember the house, and then I remember, she died shortly after that, and I kind of remember the funeral, a lot of people being around. And one thing that she always wore, a dust cap. It was just a plain circle with a elastic in it, and she wore that almost continuously. They do say that just about every picture they ever had of her, that she had to have that on. And then we moved not too far from there, and I remember a lot of things about Darryl, of course.
Did he get in trouble a lot?
It wasn't trouble. Some was. I'll get to that later. But,
did you ever get in trouble?
Me? No. I don't remember a thing about trouble with me. But Darryl had hair.
That was a long time ago.
He did. He had, and of course, I was black-haired. I had very dark hair, and Darryl was just as white-haired as your hat.
Yeah.
I was very fair.
Yes. Well, you're still fair. But I remember, I think it was a tricycle he got, and it must have been quite a big space, and there were boxes sitting around, all things, and I don't know, I can't remember if there were a number of rooms or what it was, but he was on this tricycle and zooming around and around in that house. He really had a lot of fun with that. Darryl, maybe you want to follow a few things you remember, because I will come back to some things. That's the first thing I remember.
I remember a lot of things, and most of them were pretty good about my brothers and sisters. Some of them were funny. The thing that I really don't remember was December the 31st, 1921. I was born in the midst of a blizzard between Kimball and Watkins, I guess it was. They thought I was stillborn. and they laid me aside and took care of Mother, and they had opened a window and the snow blew in on me.
Is this a Paul Bunyan story?
No, this is the truth.
This is a true
This
life
is a true
story.
story. I've heard it from my dad once.
The
Yeah.
truth is stranger than fiction.
It certainly is.
Especially by some of the Blair family.
And especially from my dad.
I resemble that statement.
You sure do.
I want to get my birthday in
Anyway,
there.
the snow blew in on me, and it awakened me or brought me or whatever.
I bet he wet his pants.
Since that time, I've developed a hearing problem, and I chose not to hear that last remark. One thing I remember most about my sister, Florence, I guess we were probably about 15, 16, 14 in there someplace. And one day, through no fault of my own, she got mad at me. And she got me by the suspenders. And got me swinging around.
I'll vouch for that. I seen it.
Are you for
She
me or
had me
against me?
going, and I couldn't slow down and I couldn't stop, and she let me go all of a sudden, and I fell. And she beat it in the house and took a case knife and put it through behind the door so I couldn't get in. Another thing that I have a little trouble with most of the time, and that's we lost our brother Dwayne. And I keep wondering what he would be doing today. He was a guy that was so full of it that
And back
Just-
home, I will say back home, no
Yeah.
matter who you talk to that knew Dwayne,
Yep.
they had just nothing but good to say about Dwayne. He was a special boy.
well, somebody else can go on to that.
I just want
Well, my first recognition of the family was we lived down on the old Olson place in Minnesota, and we all.
Betty was born there.
Yes, I think so. And we had gone. I was just probably about 4 years old, I would assume, and we didn't have a car, or it didn't work. I don't know which. Dad had a team of Grandpa Blair had a team of black horses.
About what year would this have been?
It would be probably about 1932, 33, 32, because it was before we moved to System from Minnesota. And we were all coming home from town with sitting in the back, and it was a rubber-tired wagon. And I can remember Dad driving the team, and all of a sudden somebody, "What's that smell?" He says, "That's perfume." Well, what it was the horses that passed a little gas. Well, everybody laughed. Big deal, you know. And then after we, then I think we got the car fixed, because I think we had a car at that time. And that was in summer. And that fall, I can remember coming from over to Uncle, I don't know which one of our uncles would it have been. Probably,
Art or Earl?
probably over to Arts or Earl. I don't remember which. We'd been over there, and we'd come home. As we pulled in the drive, they said, "Look at that, would you? Look at that." Here, laying outside the house, was the old still. The revenuers had been there.
Oh, you're bringing out all the... He's bringing
They had actually gone in the house, and I think Dad and Grandpa Blair
I think it
and
was Uncle Earl.
Earls and the rest of them had kind of been in cahoots with a homemade still. And
Yeah,
it
it
was
was a
stored up
family
in our house, up in the attic. And revenuers had got there. They actually come right in the house and brushed it up, threw it out in the yard.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Well, they
then,
tried very hard to pin that on Dad, and he just missed going to jail by about
yeah,
that
I
far.
remember that.
They
Yeah.
were really working
They were
on
really
that.
working on that, yeah.
Another little footnote on that Olson place was Betty Stelton's mother's farm.
Oh, was it?
It was
Oh,
the
I didn't
Bernard's.
know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't know that until last summer when we were talking to Betty up
Oh,
at
great.
Kimball.
I didn't know that. It's a good thing to know.
Yeah. That kind of surprised me. It really did.
Chrissy, what do you recall?
I guess I'm next. My earliest recollection is the farms south of Sisson, not the Cahill farm.
Sweetland.
Sweetland farm. And I remember we were all there, and Dad and Mother were upstairs, and it was I believe, if I remember right, it was one of those houses where you could go from room to room, go around and around. Well, Dad had sighted a tornado and sent us all to the basement. And Dwayne entertained us. You know, he was quite an entertainer. He taught himself how to play the guitar. He could draw cartoon characters. But anyway, there was an old Victrola down there. And to keep the rest of us younger kids, you know, quiet and so we wouldn't be scared, he played that thing and sang. I can't remember what the songs were. There were some quite old songs. And but I did sneak upstairs once. I snuck upstairs just to really see what was going on. And Dad and Mother were out on the porch, and Dad turned around, saw me, and said, "Get back downstairs," and I did. Evidently, it did not touch the ground or do any damage.
No, it didn't.
But the next recollection I have is we lived on the Cahill farm. And speaking of tricycles and bicycles, I always wanted a bicycle. And Daryl had a bicycle. I guess it was Daryl's or Dwayne's. And had this. It was huge. Now I really don't know if it was a great big bicycle just because I was little. But
It was a
was
big
huge.
bike, yeah, I remember.
And I used to beg and plead for them to give me a ride on that.
That was Florence. That was Florence's bicycle.
Oh, was it Florence?
She got that from an old boyfriend.
Oh.
No, I don't remember that.
His first name was Clinton.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. It was a big, tall bike.
Yeah, oh,
Big
it seemed
frame.
huge, but at the
It
time
was,
I didn't know because I was little.
Well, I
you
have
know,
a
and thought it was
picture of, I think Morris is in the picture with the bicycle.
Is it?
I have an old picture,
Is
yeah.
it? Yeah.
And then we have several pictures of
It might have been Daryl.
quite a big tricycle that Bobby.
Yes, and I got a picture.
sitting on that.
I got a picture of you on that.
We also had a train that we could play with in the house. I think there was like an engine and two
Yeah.
cars
Yeah, there was.
that we used to ride from one bedroom to the other bedroom in the old Cahill farm. We did use it outside too, but in the wintertime. And I recollect, and I don't know who did it, someone throwing a shoe from one bedroom to the other bedroom, and it went through the window. And I don't, but I don't recollect who did that.
It was not thrown.
It was kicked.
It was after Mother had passed away, and I was doing housework and helping Dad out in the barn and one thing and another. And I had just cleaned up the house and came back in, and that damned old shoe was laying there right out in the middle. And I got so mad I hauled off and kicked it with my shoe. And it became airborne and went right out the window.
I do remember. Isn't that funny what things that you'll recall? And remember? Well, I got one more thing. I do remember Daryl after Mother died. I remember going to the hospital right before Mother died and seeing her there, but after that, things are sort of. But I do remember Daryl washing clothes and starching our clothes, Betty and I. He was experimenting, I think, because he'd starch our dresses, and after they were dry, we could stand them in the corner.
Well, they were clean and they were
That's
white
right.
and they were
And
starched.
see, we didn't have any closets to speak of, so that worked out pretty good. And macaroni.
Yeah.
That was Daryl's, goulash was Daryl's
Yeah.
specialty.
Well, all of it for years, because we come in the store, they didn't even have to ask us what we wanted. We were buying macaroni.
It was about all we could afford. in the
Absolutely.
first
I doubt
place.
if there was even hamburger in it most of the time.
No,
Probably
lot of
not.
things.
But there's something I was going to say. I don't know why, but I have so little memory of Mother. It just has hurt me for years. I
remember.
can't. I remember quite a few things that she had said, but as far as my just seeing her I never dreamt about her. Never. I haven't dreamt about Dad really a lot, but occasionally I did dream about Dad. But I'm just wondering why I wouldn't have had. I was 18 years old.
Yeah.
Why I wouldn't have had a lot of
Well, I can remember Mother quite well. I remember her down on the old Cahill place especially. We raised a lot of garden, and we'd sit out there, all of us kids helping Mother snap beans, and of course picking peas and all this stuff. And she did a lot of canning.
She was very good at raising tomatoes. Everybody said she had
very
a
good
knack
at
for
it,
that.
yes.
So.
And by the way, our sister, other sister Betty is not here, and Betty and Mother look a lot alike. Betty Bobby resembles Mother more than anyone in the family, I think.
Well,
And,
I believe Tootsie.
yeah, I mean more so. Tootsie does too, but
yes.
I mean Betty does more so than I thought than anyone.
Coloring wise, I
Yeah,
think, yeah.
her lips are shaped just like Mother's, and you know,
One thing really I do remember is walking up the street with Mother, and I don't know why I remember that. I gotta get it in. I gave her a permanent. Oh, this was horrible. You know, way back then, the permanents were just starting to come in. And bless her heart, why she, because I always did Dad's hair, you know. I guess I like doing hair, and he had wavy hair. Oh, I love that, you know.
You used the flax.
Yes,
seed.
yes. We cooked flaxseed
Cooked flax
and
seed,
used the juice or the stuff as setting stuff, yeah. But I took hunk by hunk, and I snipped off the ends, and I rolled it all up, and did the whole thing up. I took everything out, and it never took. And my mother's hair was a mess of hair sticking out all directions. But Bob,
Yeah, of course, I'm so much younger than Russ. I wasn't born until March 9th, 1935.
Rub it
but
in, rub it in.
not to be outdone by my older brother. There was a terrible flood that year in System, and it's not funny. It really was real bad.
Yeah.
Dad said that he used to have to go across the railroad tracks down in a boat to get to the hospital. So it was,
Yeah, I remember
flood
that.
that year.
Yeah, I remember it being real flooded that year.
Yes.
Yeah.
I suppose some of the first things I remember was down on the old Cahill farm. I remember you were talking about a storm on the Sweetland farm. We had a storm down there too.
Yes.
And if I remember right, the house was moved a little bit.
Off the foundation.
Yes,
just a little
I
bit.
remember
Yes.
that. And I also
Bring it
remember
up.
there being sand by the doors and windows.
Oh, sandstorm.
Sandstorm.
oh, that was
Oh,
the dirt
yes.
storm. That
Yeah.
was the dirty
The
30s.
old Dust Bowl time.
Well, yeah, see, I was born in 35.
It was still
So it
dry.
was probably still kind of towards
Yes.
the end of that
Yes.
real dry period. Those are some of the first things I remember. You know, when I think back of when I was little, I can remember different things that happened, like I was telling a while ago about being hung by my suspenders on the door, on the back of the bedroom door on a hook or a nail or whatever's in that door. I don't remember for sure what was there.
What had you done to deserve this?
I probably plenty. I was Dad's little boy, you know. Well, he pretty much kept me under his wing all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when he traded some horses one time, and I was very upset. Of course, I liked all Dad's
Your
horses.
favorite?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, naturally. They're always your favorite, you know, when they trade them out. He traded a horse to Bill Druba, who I didn't like.
Yeah, Phil, yeah.
But it's funny the things that you remember. Now, of course, I don't remember Mother at all. Not at
No,
all.
you were only 2 and a half.
Yeah.
She died.
I remember a lot of things that happened back there. I remember riding with Dad on the grain drill behind the horses.
Oh, yeah.
I remember starting school, the old school, West Galatzers there.
Lots of
Yeah.
school.
Galatzers school.
Goodwill East, I think. Number one.
We have a lot of
Goodwill, or was that Easter? No, it was Goodwill.
Goodwill number 2, I think.
Number 2? East.
1 or 2.
That's,
Yeah, you might be right. It was
That's some of my first recollections.
Do you remember when it rained real hard and all the sand would wash down through the ditch and through our yard, and we had like a half acre of sandbox.
Oh, like a sandbar.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Beautiful.
beautiful
Yeah.
sand. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I remember that.
The
Kids
kids
used to
from
play
town,
out there.
yeah, the kids from sometimes we had company. The kids from town, they were just amazed at all the sand.
Which farm was the one that had the lake behind it?
That was the one up at Drywood Lake, southwest of System. That's where Dad lived up till the time he retired from farming.
Because I think that's probably the lake that most of your children would remember and
Oh, yeah.
associate
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Grandpa William Blair with you,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
and
right.
say, well, that was Grandpa's house to us.
Yeah.
But what are your memories of that house and that
Could I go
environment?
back to something else
Sure,
quickly?
sure.
I remember, and you probably, I'm sure you do, that Morris was a shadow of Dad at that time.
Yeah.
And Dad was cultivating and doing nearly all his work with horses.
Yeah.
And he got so sick of having to watch out for Bud, his following being in the cornfield and stuff, that he actually built a platform on the cultivator.
I thought that was Bob.
No, that was me.
No, it was at the
He built a
Olson.
box right on it.
It was the
Box,
Olson
okay,
farm.
on the-
It was the Olson
on the equipment.
Yeah, that's one thing.
So
I
you
remember.
could ride on it? And
Oh
you
yeah,
would
I
have to
rode right
watch
with
it.
him all the time. I'd be
Oh.
sleeping in there.
Yes.
Well, you guys have all been talking about things that you remember, and one of the things I remember about Mother, she was a very accomplished seamstress.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
She
And
sewed
she made
everything.
our jackets, she made our shirts, she made
Our dresses.
yes, dresses, she
Oh,
made
overalls.
mittens for our hands, and she even made some old aviator style caps that snapped and buttoned underneath here for the winter.
It
Another
started-
thing that I can't remember, I can't think why somebody hasn't remembered, and I didn't really have a hand in this, but I'm going to tell it anyway. Brother Bud, Brother Bob, and Brother Dwayne. They took an old box. We had a big farm dog about that big,
Oh yeah.
and they nailed some laths or something to the side of an apple box, and they put an axle underneath it with some buggy wheels on it, and Dwayne would go about a quarter of a mile west, and this is on a gravel road now, and he'd lead the dog on back there to about a quarter of a mile west, and Bud would stay home and he'd call the dog.
And I got the ride.
Yeah, Bob got the right.
Bob was in here hanging on both hands.
Over the top of the box.
And that box was about that far off the ground, about 3/4 of the time. This worked very well for quite a little while.
Where were you living then?
On the Cahill farm.
Okay.
Dale Farm, okay.
So one day they were doing the same thing. I don't know whether it was Dwayne or Bud that took the dog out to the west quarter mile
Up
post.
in the field.
Yeah. And the other one stayed back at the house and called for the dog, and the dog just took off just hard as he could go, and he could really move. Up jumps a jackrabbit
Oh.
out there off the field, and that dog took off across the field. Out here in the distance, there was 3 barbed wires about this high off the ground, so high and so high. And Bobby's neck was about that much higher than the lowest one. And we thought we lost
Yeah,
Brother
well,
Bob.
that was it.
The dog got tired of chasing the jackrabbit and
Got right up
come
to
on
the
back
fence.
to the house.
Thank goodness, huh?
Well,
I don't remember that. It's funny, isn't it?
Oh,
That
you
you
were
would
pretty
remember.
little.
Yeah,
Well,
but
you
you'd
were
think
the
that
star.
Yeah, but you'd think that's the kind of thing you would probably remember. But I
Yeah,
really
but you were
remember
about
those.
2 years old then.
Yeah.
I
You
don't
weren't
remember
very
that
old.
at all.
You were just big enough to ride
I
in that
wasn't even there.
apple box.
Big enough to enjoy it too.
Oh yeah. I remember he had a one of them caps that tied down around a little tassel on the top. Boy, you could see that thing just. That dog would just like go as hard as he could go.
And I have to get back to that story of
Yes.
the suspenders.
Uh-oh.
I've got to defend myself.
I hadn't really done anything wrong. You
Yes,
understand that?
yes, he did. We had all wooden floors, no linoleum. And I had scrubbed. I didn't want anybody walking on that floor until it was dry. And Daryl had to walk on that floor. So I took after him. I caught him
Oh,
out in the
that's
yard and I swung him and I swung him. And run for the house, like he said, knifed the door. He was so mad, he kicked a hole through that door.
I don't remember that.
I remember that.
Matter of fact, you'd like to forget it.
Yes, I would. I would like very
Never,
much to forget.
never forget this now. And then down on the Olson farm, we all know how Dad liked to ding up old cars.
Oh, yes.
Oh boy, yeah. He was a good mechanic.
It wasn't, yes, he was. He was an excellent
Good
mechanic. And the thing I remember, and I remember Mother on this too, because more I think I remember this, not on the Olson place, but it comes to my mind. He would just get a car all dinged up, and it was fine to go. Oh, had to treat it off.
Nothing more to
get,
fix.
yes, had to get a little more money out of it,
Yeah.
get another one. But he'd get in and dump the ashes out, get his knife out, clean it out,
Yeah.
put the tobacco in, stomp it down, light it up, then we could go.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you went through that same ritual. I
Yes,
remember
yes,
it. Yes,
yes,
I
we did.
do. And
But-
he did that until he quit smoking. He always done that same thing with the pipe.
You know, he did one other thing I think probably all of you remember when he would get stuck with his
Oh,
car.
yes.
You've never seen anybody drive like my father when he got stuck in the snow.
And at the few times I ever seen him really get mad
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
was when
that's-
he would get stuck.
When he
But
gets
he,
stuck,
he would get in
really
that
get
car
mad.
and he would put it in low and he'd go forward. And then he'd put it in reverse and he'd go like that. And then he'd pull and he'd go forward. And he would get so mad. Usually he got out.
Yeah.
He wouldn't give up normally until he did get out. But, boy, I'll tell
And
you,
you bear, that's
it was
about-
all you could do to keep your face straight.
That was about the only time I ever heard Dad cuss.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Also,
Much cussing.
he would really get angry when he would get.
I
when
saw
he
him
get
mad
stuck.
once, and he
Pretty
whacked me
tolerant.
across the side of the head too.
Speaking of
But
that,
I mean, he was. They didn't beat us. Neither
I
one.
was gonna say, speaking of that, I never remember Dad ever slapping me. The only time I ever remember it was either Bud or maybe it was you. He kicked in the seat of the pants
That
one
was
time.
me.
The only thing Dad would have to do, he had the old razor strap, remember that?
Yeah.
Above the kitchen door, along the kitchen door, and we'd be sitting at the table. Dad put up with no nonsense at the table. You know, we could talk and laugh, but nothing silly going on. And all he'd do would look up at that razor strap. It would just go dead silent.
Well, the reason, well, you guys all remember Dad, Mom. Dad told me to do something one day. I was about 15 years old, I guess, then. And without thinking of what I was doing, I says, yeah, in a minute. And that's when his foot connected with the seat of my
your
pants.
The
Well,
minute was up, right?
Yeah, it was less
Also-
than a minute.
What are your thoughts about what's right and what's wrong, and what should we be thinking about? Florence?
I believe my first thought is that we were not a church family. We had good. We were brought up with good values and how to get along well in life, but we were not churchgoers. And as I grew older and was in high school, we had a minister that really looked after our family. And this was after, I especially remember more after our mother died. And I have often been thought how wonderful that I know he gave a lot of prayers for us, as did the whole community. Well, this is a little beside the point as to what I'm talking about it isn't, but it seems like kind of out of the way. I joined Kenneth Church when we got married then, and it happened to be Grace Lutheran Church in Sisseton. And I have been very, very happy with my life and my church. And I believe that this is a foundation for any young couple that is married, to be married or is married, to you can't go wrong by following the Word of God. Also, I think be true to each other, love each other. Of course, when you get married, you always love each other. That goes without saying. But you have to go through a lot of hard times. You don't always agree, but just love each other. And I think, like with my dad and our dad, and back in those days, we did not need to sign contracts. If you looked a person in the eye and shook his hand or her hand, that was your contract. You never reneged. You did what you said you would do. And that is short notice. I can't really add too much more. But I think just being truthful and being a good friend, love your family.
Bob, your thoughts?
Well, Florence hit him pretty good. Pretty much said it all, really, when she said, to be honest. That's really probably the number one thing. What you'd like your family to do and be, Our family's always been quite open. I know a lot of other people aren't. Well, you talk to them and their families aren't close to others. I think being open and honest, and I think getting together is important.
Loving each other through thick and thin.
I think one of the main things that I would tell my children and anyone else's children is to like get to know the rest of your family. Know your cousins,